All right, here we are for race 5 of season 5 at the where are we this week? Why I'm suddenly blanking. We are at
Watkins Glen.
thank you. Watkins Glen. It's going to be a rough broadcast. I can't even remember the track off the break. I obviously, as you hear, I got Jay with me. We'll go ahead and pull. We're waiting for the warm up lap. We'll go ahead and pull up the season standings. And there were some shuffling of positions after the last race.
Yeah, I do see. All the familiar names are up front. We got Scott Taylor in fifth, which is absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah, go Scott.
Um, yeah, David Macedo is, I do believe, now in the lead with Doherty, Moda, and Hasselbrock pretty close behind. Only what, about 20 points separating the top five. So that's a pretty close spread. We got Pedro in sixth, Miller in seventh, which good job, Evan.
Yeah,
Uh,
great job, Evan.
yeah, Demler in eighth, David Hicks in ninth, and Maxwell Cerna, and that rounds out the old top 10 there.
Yeah, and let's
Yeah, that's
the shuffle.
quite yeah, quite the packing of names up there, though. I'm familiar with most of those guys. So
Yeah, it's been an interesting season thus far with some of the guys missing races, some having hardware failures or issues that prevented them from finishing. And as I say that, Alvarez just disappeared off the starting grid. It looks like we had a disconnect right before the warm-up lap started. We'll see if he's able to reconnect and start from pits. But that's as I say, hardware issues. There goes another one this season. We'll go ahead and pull up while the guys are starting the warm-up lap right now. We'll pull up the qualifying order, and Moto managed to qualify at the top. So pole position for Moda, great job. Was able to qualify with a 144, 172, so almost touching those 143s. So great job. Not far behind Mike Bowen, who's rejoining us. He's been away for a few races and was able to. I can't remember if it was after Spa or what was the last race he was with us, but he's able to join back. So in second, right behind Moda, just a fraction behind him, and then again not far behind Bowen, we have Alvarez. We've got one, two, three, four, five guys qualified with 144s. So great job to those. And then we've got a group of drivers, the 145s, which was Darty, Scott Taylor, Kyle Macedo. I know Darty and Kyle Macedo have been having some close races, so we'll see if there's any action between the two of them today.
yeah, 144 here is just a little bit out of my reach. I think 45s are fairly comfortable for me around here, but I've I've always thought that Watkins was an amazing track. It's just real fun to drive. It's one of those tracks that really sort of encourages sort of the Jesus take the wheel kind of racing that I prefer. But yeah, there are a lot of places around here that really sort of just require you to just trust that the car is going to do what you want it to,
Mm-hmm.
uh, despite all of the contraindications. But yeah, I mean, this is a fun track. It's great for racing, so I'd love to see what these guys can do here.
Yeah, and we raced this one last season. This was one of the tracks making a return um, from last season to this season. A lot of the guys enjoyed it, and it provided some exciting racing last season. I think it was the track we finished the season off with. I believe it was season four's finale was Watkins Glen. So I did see some posts this week of some people not thrilled about it, but for the most part, people seem to enjoy the track.
Yeah, I suppose it's just one of those things where, depending on what your
I,
driving style is, it's just.
I will say they say like a section of the track shaped like a boot. If you look at the track map, the right hand section's a boot. But when I look at the track map, I'm gonna send you this, channel if you have your Discord. But when I look at the track map, I just see a guy bent over, like looking to take it. That's when I look at the entire track. That's what Watkins Glen looks like to me.
I mean, yeah, I can definitely see the. I can definitely see that. That is.
We'll
I
see
mean,
if anyone ends up in that position today as we're getting ready to go green here.
I don't know that I'll ever be able to unsee that, but yeah, that's.
That's
Well,
all.
it's like Spa being shaped like an Uzi.
Now I'll have to look at Spa's track map. All right, we're off here. We'll see if we can get into turn one close. We had an incident here last season, turn one, so it looks like the guys did make it through. We don't get the best heli cam. It's a pretty tight heli cam on this. We've got Macedo and Miller side by side. It lost Miller a little bit of the drive, so we've got some people getting by. It looks like that's going to be Pedro, and ooh, Miller gets on the Taylor was the one that lost drive. Miller then got on the brakes. Head to the front. It looks like Moda's. Yeah, the top three managed to space out and kind of get into line here, so pretty good there. Same with Hicks. Doherty, but as I was talking before about Doherty and Macedo, we got Macedo right on the back of Doherty right now. It's one of the few tracks the TV camera gives you better shots of all the cars versus the heli cam.
I mean, it is a fairly compact track, so I mean, I guess I'm not really surprised there. Yeah, this last corner coming onto the final straight is very much one of those. Just keep your foot in it. Hope the thing's gonna turn. Yeah, if you're not running it out to the wall, then you're not going fast enough.
Yeah, I know. Last year we had a few guys kiss the wall. It's if you're really giving it your all, you're coming so close where it's possible to do that every time. Macedo goes a little bit wider there.
And coming up through this section, this right left coming out onto the straight is such a dangerous part of the track. I mean, there's not too many pinch points on this track, but if something goes wrong there, that's the section of the track where the walls are closest to each other, and I've seen more than a few traffic jams happen.
Through the chicane.
And
comes back on and hits. Was that Scott Taylor that took
was
the
Taylor? Yeah.
Yeah, let's see it from.
I mean, it doesn't look like it did anything to Scott. Scott just shrugged that off, like. Yeah, Pedro. I think Pedro definitely got the worst part of that.
I think so, and you can see it's a difficult part of the track. Yeah, and it doesn't look so. Oh, and Doherty is facing forward.
No.
So we've had two incidents. We're only into the second lap. We'll go back here and see what even happened with.
Looks like Macedo and Doherty were pretty close there. I wonder if there was some contact.
Yeah, let's go back. Whoops, let's go. So, see.
Yeah, coming
Doherty.
Into the chicane right now.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, it was a little tap of the brakes, it looked like, as he was. Oh! And just gets rocked. That was Demler. Is Demler still driving after that? That was And I think it just went on. Does he even have damage?
Doesn't look like it.
Does Dimmler have cheat codes on? I don't. This is great. This is chaos. I can't believe he managed to escape that. Yeah, first he escapes Pedro. He's probably thinking, "Oh my God, that was close." And then just
Wow.
well, Beamer greater than GTR in a crash test. That was.
I mean, it seems like it. I wonder if there's maybe not some netcode issues going on there.
Yeah, that was. But good. We'll see if it ended up affecting him. It looks like it didn't, but it'll be one of those things we'll have to see. We got to see this one more time on his point of view.
I'm definitely not seeing any scuffing or the hood flapping around after that contact. So
yeah, poor Scott. Yeah, it didn't look nearly as bad from his car point of view. So
no,
maybe it was a bit.
Yeah, that might have been some netcode going on there.
Well, I'm glad to see that he made it out unscathed because he wasn't guilty of anything, just trying to pass through that section of the track.
Yeah, and that's rough for Doherty. I mean, he did everything he was supposed to do. Just hold the brakes. Don't try to get off the track in the way of somebody. Just sort of let them figure it out. And unfortunately, he just got the short end of that stick.
From talking to Doherty this week, I know one of the things he was struggling with the track, trying to get the setup right, and I know he ended up stepping the brake bias really far back. Oh, do we have Alvarez hit?
He hit the wall. I saw that, definitely.
Yeah, I think he did. Let's go.
That's a part of the track where it's very easy to do so.
Yeah.
Just carrying a little bit too much speed through that. Yeah, and Watkins is a track where...
And did he save it? He saved it.
Oh, yeah. A little bit Tokyo Drift going on there. No big deal.
It's going to let... Looks like Driveman and Francisco and Alvarez by. And Alvarez now. Whoa. He is...
Looks like he pulled out to try to get a better run on the corner and was maybe a little bit closer to the corner than he thought he was. That's the thing with following close behind somebody. You tend to sort of hyper-focus on their car and miss your braking markers, which I think that might actually be what happens here.
I think you're exactly right. Or I think or he didn't quite know that Driveman was going to brake at that moment, and he just threw it inside. But thankfully, managed to get through before anyone was met into the apex there. So came back on clean, just lost some position.
And unfortunately, the only thing he could have done there was either slam into the back of the car in front of him or do what he did. I mean, luckily he didn't hit anybody. There really was no way to go to the outside there. So
yeah, that was the thing, right? You're up against the wall and you're starting from the outside. There's nowhere to go there.
Exactly. But like I was saying, Watkins is a track that's very well known for pretty much the curbs being part of the track. So you're going to see a lot of guys running as far out on these curbs as possible. T1 through the chicane. I mean, quite literally, as long as you've got two tires still touching the curb, you're legal through a lot of these corners. So.
Yeah, and about evenly spaced at the front, about the top four guys. All about the same space between them, and then quite a bit of space to... Whoa! There goes Kyle in the background, getting a little sideways. Oh, and as we switch, Miller just creams the one. Pedro! Whoa! Have we had this much... This isn't necessarily the kind of action we want, but have we had this much action in a...
No, this is...
this is insanity. What... Alright, let's try to get on board with Pedro and see... what even happened, because it looks like Evan was kind of off to the side, sitting still. I don't know what Pedro had expected, or did he? Yeah, I'm not sure there with Pedro.
I think he thought maybe the wall was a little farther away from the track, that Evan was going to keep
Eh,
going, like there was going to be a little bit more room, or perhaps maybe he was driving distracted, texting. Who knows?
yeah, that was crazy. Poor I feel for Pedro and Miller there, because that's going to be a significant amount of damage for the two of them. And Pitts, we are 5 minutes into the race with a race full of action already, a race worth full of action.
Yeah, I think at this rate we're going to have maybe 4 cars on the lead lap by the end of this. I don't know. Things might settle down. I mean, this is one of the newer tracks. You know, some of the guys might not have as much experience around here, especially if they're new to sim racing. So, I mean, a track
Oh,
like Spa's in just about every racing game ever made. So, Watkins not so much.
and so we've got Francisco. I saw Dryman was past there. That's what happened. So Francisco went off the track a little bit, and that's going to let Dryman through. Francisco does a good job of giving him the
She's
space when he was on the inside.
driving just about. I mean, there's no polite way to say it. He almost ate shit through that corner. That
Did he?
was.
I totally
Yeah,
missed it.
he
Let me
did.
gotta go back.
Yeah, he got up on the curbs
Let's
coming
see
around
if
Escobar,
I can
and
get a good shot of it. Oh yeah, he sure did.
yeah, he. I
Ooh,
don't know, man. That's enough to wake you up.
I'm telling you, gotta check my pulse after this start.
Yeah,
This
that's
is my heart going out my chest watching all this.
yeah. It's. I mean, it's not the calmest race at this point. I mean, I'm just glad it's not people being overly aggressive and wrecking each other. It's just people quite literally wrecking themselves,
Oh,
which
and
is
you know what?
preferable.
And we
Cool.
have something else happen here. I see Kyle was in front, and he lost to Dimmler and Scott Taylor. So let's see what happened here. And similar to Escobar, it's a
I'm
little
wondering
too
if there
much.
might not be some damage or something to Kyle's car, because he does look quite unpredictable on the rear end. I've seen him kind of come around a couple times, and it does look like he's just sort of. I mean, it kind of looked like he was defending clean air there.
Oh,
Um,
and this is where it happens. So
yeah,
a little too much speed through, I guess, through that first part carried him wide into the second part of the chicane.
yeah. The way he was riding all the way to the right on that straight, I thought maybe he was going to let Scott by, but it looks like he was just
Defensive.
a little too eager and defended a move that was never going to happen. But yeah, that McLaren's been looking a little sketchy on the rear.
How does Scott's car look? Because he had the little tap with Pedro earlier. I don't know if it's a logo. No, I don't even think there's a scuff on his. I think that's one of his part of his livery. So that's
I
good.
mean,
Hopefully he's not dealing with
if
anything also.
if Demler can quite literally drive through a car and not get any damage, and then Scott gets damage from that little tap with Pedro, then I don't even know what's going on anymore.
And I went to switch because Bowen was pulling up on Moda, but sort of backed off a little bit.
Looks
Oh,
like
he's got
he's
a
definitely going to
really
make a
good
move.
run on him
Yeah,
here. And
going
I
to try to make a
imagine
move down this straight.
exactly, yeah, down the straight too. I imagine that that Aston's gonna have a little bit more grunt, and manages to clear him before the bus stop, so nice. We guess we'll see if this sets Bowen free or if Alex is able to attack back.
I mean, at this point, it looks like Bowen's just got a little bit more pace than that Porsche. The Porsche might be gaining in these tight sections under braking, but I think that the Aston's just going to have a bit more legs when it comes to the straights.
We got Alvarez pass on Driveman here, so let's see. Great job from Alvarez. Started from the pits from that technical issue, and he's managed to about to move his way up into 8th here. Yeah, so just Driveman a little wide, or almost lets him through. Yeah, he's gets on the brakes early and lets Alvarez through. So that puts him up into 8th.
And in some positions, that's the right move to make. I mean, especially if you know the guy that you're racing with is just... I mean, there's defending, and then there's just holding up a guy that's, not in the same race as you.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as like a knock to Driveman. He's a good driver. It's just there are different paces on track, and when you know you're not on pace with the guy you're racing with, there's really no point. So.
Yeah, exactly. All that it could end up doing is letting Francisco catch up to Driveman if he starts parking it in turns and trying to block him. It just would let Francisco start to catch up on him. So I agree with you. I will check back. So definitely has not checked out yet. I mean, Moda's still less than a second away from him, but he has started to pull a little bit of a gap on him.
Yeah,
Hicks is...
I expect that gap to drop coming through this middle sector here. That the Porsche is just so much better on the brakes. Oh,
whoa!
Was that David Macedo going a little sideways there?
Let's know if we can get a better shot of this or not. Yeah, that wasn't a great one. Let's go back just one more time. Yep, it was definitely David just drifting that McLaren.
I don't know what the Macedos are doing out there tonight, but
I don't know what anyone's doing out there today.
It's not a drift competition, guys.
Yeah.
Come on now.
If it was, I've seen some. They definitely have some style points. Good job saving that too.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Let's check on the other Macedo brother. So he is still behind Demler and Taylor. Yeah, the one nice thing are...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, Jay.
I was going to say, and that looks like that's going to be a track warning for Kyle there, so I wonder... Like I said, this track is... You very much have to use as much of the curbs as possible, so
Kyle
I wonder
takes the
how
defensive
much...
line.
I wonder how much of this is going to be decided by drive-throughs.
Yeah. It's a good point. We'll have to monitor that as well. Well, hopefully it's not as bad as the other week.
Yeah, that was a bit of a roller coaster. Yeah, and Kyle seems like he's a little eager to defend going down that straight, and it's very much sort of compromising his entry into the bus stop. He's a bit worried about Scott,
Mm-hmm.
but Scott's a little too far behind to be really going for anything other than a dive bomb. And that does not sound like Scott Taylor to me.
Yeah, Scott's gonna take the opportunity when it's clearly there. He's not gonna try to force something that isn't. If you make a mistake or you leave a door open, he's gonna take it, but not. He's not gonna try to squeeze his car in where it doesn't belong. Yeah, Sam, we've got some good groupings of cars. The top four, well, they started to space out now. They were fairly close, and then we've got this other three cars here, four cars with Alvarez now closing in.
Yeah, so it looks like Miller and Doherty both stuck around. It looks like
Ooh,
Pedro.
Kyle's
Looks
trying.
like. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. I was gonna say Kyle was trying to squeeze his way, trying to find a way around Demmler there.
Yeah, I think the better move almost always here is just to try to wait for the straight. I mean, if you try to force something going through that section, it can cause some problems.
So Demmler's gonna take the defensive line, blocks where Kyle wants to turn in. Kyle lost some speed. That's gonna let Taylor back through.
Yeah,
And he goes
yeah,
wide and looks like same thing as Doherty. Wide in the turn, tried to touch the brakes while in the turn and probably had that bias back. So
yeah.
I'm guessing it was the same exact thing that happened to Doherty. That's unfortunate. Kyle was having a pretty good race considering some of the things.
And it looks like Kyle was probably dealing with a car that was not handling all that well to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that was aero damage or what was going on there. But I was just about to say that it looks like after that wreck with Miller, Perez decided that sticking around was going to be more painful than finishing, than leaving. So he looks like he took off, and so did Kyle.
Yeah, good thing Miller did stay. So Miller had quite a bit of damage was involved when hit the wall, and then Pedro. So it looks like Miller did hang around, which is great. It looks like he pitted already and was able to get that damage fixed as well.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. I mean, he is a couple laps down, but something could happen. I mean, the way this race is going, he could end up in fourth. So,
Yep. Well, Alvarez made it past Taylor. Let's go back. What happened to when he got by Taylor? It must have just happened as we jumped off. Oh, Taylor
ooh,
loose and
ooh, yeah,
scrubs the wall. Well, if Taylor wasn't dealing with damage before, sure he's definitely dealing with a little bit of it now from that.
yeah.
They're at the 14 mark, so if the car's still decent enough to keep driving, he's got a decent amount of distance in front of Driveman. If he can make it to the pits, that he might be able to get it as soon as the pit window opens and not have to pit twice.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is sort of weighing that decision between coming in for a stop to fix the damage or just waiting it out and getting everything done in one go.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean if you can drive, if you're 5 minutes away, so a couple laps away, and the car, you can still get it around the track, at that point I feel like you gotta hold off and try to wait for it to pit. If it's one of the things where the car's not even drivable, where you can't even steer it or get it to get around turns, then you got no choice. And so that's going to let Alvarez in front of Demler now. So all the way up into 5th. 15 minutes into the race. Not too shabby from Alvarez.
Yeah, I mean, the pass on Demler was, I mean, it was well executed. It's always scary going into a hard braking zone like that. It is an uphill braking zone, or at least an uphill corner. So you can absolutely smash the brakes and steer and have enough grip to get it done. But it's always scary coming through that turn that hard on the brakes and trying not to slam into the guy next to you.
All right, so we've got Bowen. Well, he hasn't completely left Moda. It looks like he's built up about 2-second lead on Moda at this point. Yeah, Mike's a pretty consistent driver too, so it's going to be tough to just wait back and hope he makes a mistake because yeah, he's a consistent guy, and I'm sure switching to that Aston's only going to help make him more. He was already consistent driving the Honda. I can only imagine how consistent he'll be in the Aston.
Yeah, that thing definitely looks like it's on rails at the moment.
And
I've been surprised actually. The Honda that Alvarez is driving looks like it's pretty well on rails as well, and that's the car that has looked sort of the most out of sorts the last couple of races. Just doesn't handle curbs well, and it looks like he's got it pretty well set up.
yeah, I agree. I didn't think about it at the time, but you're right. The Honda here has looked much better. It's been those McLarens that we've seen seem to be getting loose between David and Kyle.
Well, it's good to see a track where the McLaren's maybe not the go-to choice for whatever reason. I'm not quite sure why that would be here, but it's interesting to see a track where the McLarens are struggling and the rest of the cars seem to be, I mean, handling it decently well.
Yeah, and good job with Hicks running third this race.
Yeah, he's definitely shown pace over the last few races. I remember Paul Ricard. He didn't. It wasn't a bad showing. I mean, he was fairly consistent. Had some decent pace. I remember he had that little tangle with Doherty. Sometimes that's just sort of enough to rattle you, kind of shake your confidence. But yeah, third looks like he's handling it pretty well here.
Yeah, and David Macedo's looked good here this week in a lot of the practice sessions. I've saw the laps he was putting in, but Hicks has also looked pretty strong. So we'll have to see if David's able to close that 2-second gap, or if something happens maybe when they go to pit. We're at the 19-minute mark. So
that was a pretty wicked snap going through there.
Yeah, that's gonna let David Hicks eke out just a little bit further. And the two closest we have on track at the moment, we've got Scott Taylor, who's about a second and a half behind Dembler, and that's the battle for 6th. And then going back, we've got Francisco and Nick Driveman again. So they had some exciting battles last week between these guys. We'll see if they're going to give us another show this week.
I think Escobar's just happy he's not behind Miller, because that was about a race and a half. Those last 6 or 7 laps.
Oh, it was. Yeah.
That was a race in itself.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Those guys gave us a good show last week.
And I bet you Nick's having some flashbacks as well.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think Nick's one of the drivers that's scared of a battle. I think Nick welcomes it. I don't know if he wants to I don't know if he wants it coming from behind him, but I know he'd probably rather be pulling in on a car and battling them. But yeah, I know he's not scared of having to go too wide through somewhere. Yeah, I'll tell you, I remember Watkins last year, and I don't recall it being a whole lot of accidents and people losing the car, and it being like as difficult of a track as it's looked this race.
No, I mean there was some drama last season, some lap 1 and 2 incidents, but it wasn't anywhere near the sort of the volume we've had this go around. So we do actually have, I think, quite a few guys that. Well, I guess I shouldn't say quite a few. I think we've got maybe 3 or 4 guys that weren't here for that race last season, and I think most of the guys that are here were in different cars at the time. So I'm sure it's been kind of a learning curve.
Oh, and Francisco managed to close that gap. It's going to be tough to try to get inside for this one. He kind of waits. Actually, that was well done. I think he actually might have been able to stay on the gas there if he really wanted to.
If I were Nick, I would have given him a little bit more room on the inside there. Just sort of let him think he could have got around you. Make him go the long way around for the next corner. But no, that was yeah. This is very much reminiscent of Paul Ricard. Sort of this battle between Nick and Francisco. It seems like and that looked like Taylor. That looked like Scott Taylor.
It sure did. Let's switch to Taylor and even see what happened.
I wonder if
it looks like a hardware issue.
Yeah,
it's not stopping. It's like the car. It's like he has no control. It finally got it stopped. Yeah, and going right to the pit. So it looks like some kind of hardware failure for him, but
man, that sucks.
Thankfully, these guys didn't get caught up in it. That was close riding on board with Francisco and seeing the puff of smoke from a puff of dirt from Scott's car.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think about 2 lifetimes flashed before Nick's eyes there. That was almost a bad situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of like I brought up earlier at the beginning of the race. That is one of the worst places for there to be an incident because there's literally nowhere to go. The walls are so close on either side of the road that it literally just turns into a roadblock.
Mm-hmm. The other hard part, too, when you got a guy coming across the track going to the wall, you don't know how the physics are going to react. Where are they going to bounce backwards off the wall? So do you want to aim towards them near the wall, or do you want to try to get away from the wall? it's tough with those. It's much easier when someone's crossing off the track going into the grass or runoff
Yeah.
area.
In that situation, I always aim for the back of their car. Always aim to pass to the rear. I mean, it's much like, somebody losing control out on track. Um, it, it, you never know what's going to happen, but at least give yourself the best chance to get by them
Hmm.
if you at all can. I mean, they're probably going to bounce off the wall and some horrible stuff's going to happen, but at a certain point, there's not really much you can do. And Driveman's Honda's not looking well. I mean, I say that now, but it's not looking too bad over these curbs either. So I'm wondering if
No.
it's maybe just the less aggressive profile of these curbs that's sitting a little bit better with that car this race.
Yeah, so at this point, I think Francisco's probably feeling good that he got the pace to drive and he can keep up with them. That's no problem. So he just needs to wait for that chance to get.
Yeah, the hard part though, I mean, wait for that chance. With
Mhm.
every lap that you're stuck behind the guy, your patience just
He's trying the outside here, but that's going to be tough.
oh, it looks like Driveman
Is
might be
he?
pitting.
I think you're right. I don't. Yeah, driving says, "Oh, I'll go ahead and not deal with you. You go ahead and go. I'm gonna pit." So we're at the 27 mark. So taking um, pitting slightly before the halfway point of the race.
And that's something that we didn't bring up is the pit entrance and exit on this track are
Oh,
so dangerous. The pit entrance is quite literally at the end of a very fast right-hand corner where the entrance is on the inside of the corner, but that's also the racing line. So if you're trying to get into the pits, you have to slow down, but the car behind you doesn't know that's what you're doing. So um, accidents are just such a horrible thing here when you're going into the pits.
yeah, accidents and a very easy one to get that speeding penalty in the pits because it's so
Yeah.
short.
And then the exit of the pits
Oh,
is just
yeah.
there's a pretty nasty bump there, and if you've just got a little bit too much throttle coming out of that, it's easy to just completely loop the car coming out of the pit lane.
Yeah, most of the cars, I don't think you can kind of like when you hit the pit exit that you can kind of get flat out and manage to stay inside of that white pit exit line either. So if you're too aggressive coming out of the pit, you got guys on track, um, coming through. You could easily collide into them.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can get a shot of did Dryman already leave the pits. Yes,
Looks like, yeah, he
so.
did.
And is he right back with? Oh, he was.
Oh, no, no,
Oh,
no. Little too wide.
yeah. I don't know if he was trying to make sure he avoided Hicks for something, or
Yeah,
I
he,
think he
he
was
was.
trying to let Hicks by. He knew that.
I think he might even have some blue flags going on. I don't think he's.
Yeah, there's definitely
Yeah,
a
he's
blue
got.
flag. I saw it there. So he just tried to get off the race line and let him through, and that's unfortunate. He's just trying to do the right thing. Um, it gets stressful. Is he gonna be able to get back? Hopefully, no one's coming around. Um, it gets stressful when you gotta lap traffic and you're under the blue flag and you're trying to wait for that safe place, but at the same time, you feel like guilty that you're holding this guy up. But at the same time, he was good here. He didn't end up causing an accident, but it's really worth just waiting to a place that you're absolutely comfortable letting him by, because if a mistake's made and you lose control of the car, you can easily take that car out. So it's almost better to have them wait a little bit and then let them by safe versus risking taking them out.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, every league that I know of or have been a part of, everyone sort of falls back on the F1 blue flag rules, which is, just get out of the way no matter what. But I don't know. This seems to be the easier solution, but I mean, it sort of doesn't really allow the guys that maybe aren't on the pace to really race, because they're spending more time worrying about, when the fast guys are coming up, and when to get off the racing line and let people through, and it's just sort of, it just compounds, because they start feeling like
Yeah.
they have to go slower to let
And
people pass,
here's
and
an
that.
example of it now. We got Darty under the blue flag, and yeah, pulls off. And again, not an ideal way to do it, but you usually don't want to be hitting the brakes. But he wanted to make sure he didn't catch him.
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of those things where the guy behind you is fast. He's going to get past you anyway. Um, I don't necessarily believe in making guys get out of the way in corners, especially when there's not really more than one way through a corner. Straights are the easiest way to do it, but I mean, in the end, what are you going to do?
Yeah, you know what too? I think it's one of those things too where when you see the blue flag, you see the car on the split, the delta, whatever, showing you how far back they are from you. You sometimes think they're closer than they really are, where you think you've got to let them through right now because they're right on you, when it's really not the case. Um, so no one wants to hold the guy up, so everyone just tries to do the right thing. But
Yeah.
all right, so at this point we're at 32. I don't believe we've had Bowen or Moda pit yet, or David Macedo.
Well, and I think that I mean, I don't know if this is what's going through Moda's head, but I mean, he knows that Bowen's Bowen's currently not even in the top five points wise,
Mm-hmm.
and Moda absolutely is. So the only guy he's competing with right now is Macedo, David Macedo. Um, so as long as he finishes ahead of David, um, Moda's sitting pretty here. So I wonder if that's factoring into sort of his decision making, instead of trying to take the risks and catch Bowen. I mean, he's already shown that he's got similar pace. Um,
That was a nice way to let him by there. You saw Dimmler take a
yeah,
little bit wider of a line, let Moda through, nice and smooth.
and that comes with experience. I mean, that's always the worry, is getting guys that are so new to the sport that they're not quite sure how to take the corners to begin with, and sort of asking them to do the differential equations required to figure out how to race offline sometimes is a bit much. But yeah, that was definitely a uh, a class in how to let someone through.
Absolutely, sign me up. I'm trying to figure out right now if it's showing Driveman 14 seconds behind Francisco. So either Francisco didn't pit yet, or when Francisco does pit, Driveman's going to be out in front of him by 15 seconds. So I'm not sure. Because they were close when Driveman went into the pits.
Yeah, I wonder if so. Driveman did have that spin, um, letting Hicks by, so that definitely did slow him down a bit.
Oh yeah, true. So maybe Francisco did already pit. We're at the 35-minute mark, so if anyone didn't pit, they should be getting ready to now.
Yeah, Bowen did end up coming in, so it's just David and Alex that are sort of trying to chicken each other here
Yeah.
into missing their pit
Hey,
windows.
there's one thing you won't ever catch David doing. That's David Macedo will never pit early.
No, 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 he will not.
I could just imagine it be like real life, and the crew chief just yelling at David to get in the pits. David just muting him, keep driving.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think he'd probably have his headset unplugged.
It's that would be it.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen David pit early, and when you didn't have to, I don't think I ever saw David pit. So
Mm. Nope, nope. He was one of the ones from season one when we figured out we could get most of the cars to make it an hour if you filled their tank up. He was one of the ones just doing the stop and goes before we implemented the mandatory tire changes. Oh, you know another thing. So, talking about some of the incidents early on and having to pit before the actual mandatory pit.
Mhm.
Another common mistake is a lot of times you'll set up your pit strategy before the race because so you kind of know I'm going to carry X amount of fuel to start, and then yes, there goes David now pitting with 37 mark. But you have it set up that when I go to pit, fill this much amount of gas and motors in as well. Um, what happens is if you're in an incident lap one or lap two that requires you to go into pits to fix damage, a lot of times you'll forget to adjust your pit strategy. You'll just go in and it'll be the default, pit number one. And you
Mhm.
go in and now all of a sudden you're running 100 and some liters of gas because you forgot to turn you forgot to disable getting fuel when you go in to fix the damage. So you go
Yeah,
in now. You can't. You're already frustrated because you had the lap. You had to go into the pits early, and you're still gonna have to pit mid race. So you're losing time for that. Then you come out of the pits, and you're just a huge sloppy tank because your car is just overfilled with fuel. So yeah, that's the other um, mistake that's easy to make if you have to pit early and you're not pitting at the normal, mandatory pit window.
yeah, and that was always one of those guys who sort of tried to do all the calculations on the fly as to how much gas I would
Mm.
need, just so that wouldn't happen. I mean, I had a few incidences, season one, the first couple races, where um, ended up having to come in and fix some damage and all that kind of stuff, and um, nearly nearly ended up taking a full tank of gas and new tires. Caught it at the last second, but yeah,
Yes. See.
I mean, it's a catch-22 because I mean, you do all that stuff on the fly and you're distracted.
Oh, hugely. I can't do it.
Yeah,
Props to you. I feel like some of the tracks that have the super long straights, I can kind of get into the menu, using the controls on my wheel and start adjusting. stuff. Other tracks, I'll go in and maybe I'm adjusting the tire pressure because the temps are dropping, so I'll go in and bump all the tires each lap, bumping one of the tires up a couple psi or something for when I go to pit. But it stresses me out having to get into the menu and do that. I'm always so fearful of making a change and then looking up and then there's the wall or something, a turn approaching.
Yeah, it's definitely it's it's something you got to practice. Um, but yeah, it doesn't always work out. I've underfueled by a few liters. Just trying to do all the math in your head and keep it on track. I did notice that Alvaret's got a bit of a flappy hood there, so I wonder if that's from coming too wide through the last sector and kissing a wall, or if he had some
Might,
contact.
yeah, might be. And then I'm guessing he must have just not elected to fix it, just trying to hope he can pull in David Macedo. And we're at the 40-minute mark, so pits are definitely closed at this point. Everyone had to go in and get their tire change, the mandatory tire change. And at this point, the people who survived, it's all fairly space. Oh, there's David just wiggling that rear again. Got that OnlyFans car shaking that ass.
You know, it makes sense. It
Yeah,
makes
it's
sense.
fair. Yeah, so Alvarez, 18. We'll have to keep an eye on this. 18 seconds down from David Macedo. Uh, I would think with 20 minutes left in the race, that's probably going to be too much to try to cover that much ground, but I'm not going to write Alvarez off.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Alvarez, fourth or fifth is probably the best he was gonna do here. Unfortunately, I mean, it's at that point it's all about damage mitigation. I mean, you uh you have a failure, your car stalls on the line or whatever it is. It just kind of ruins the whole plan. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, assuming your plan's to win. Um, but yeah, it's all about just sort of trying to mitigate the damage, and I think he's done a pretty good job. I mean,
Oh, I'd be feeling pretty good about myself if I had to start from the pits and manage to climb up into fifth place.
yeah, we've seen some pretty impressive recoveries from Alvarez so far this season.
We
Um,
have.
yeah, so it's no surprise that he's climbing his way back
I,
up there.
I think
Um,
I think the last time we saw it was like Alvarez. He had like I think the drive through or something, and then got an I forget. Oh, there David kissed the wall there a little bit. But I remember that what was it? It was in um what race was it? It was at it's the tip
all I
of
can say
it was
is
at the tip of my
I didn't.
tongue. Where was it? Hungaro ring was where
It might have been.
he had the track cut, and then I think I can't remember if he lost control or what happened, or if he had multiple. But yeah, I remember he got a few different issues that race and was fighting his best to try to. He didn't give up basically, where a lot of guys would have just parked it and walked away. He kept
Yeah, I
driving.
was gonna say I didn't know there was going to be homework involved, or I would not have agreed to this.
Yeah, I wish I
So
had a better memory. I don't know. I need to. I can think of the things I want to, I just can't remember all the little details. Like I remember stuff, but that is the details. They're all fuzzy.
Well, it looks like Macedo's been hovering around the 2.8, 2.6
Yeah.
area right behind Hicks there. So I wonder if fourth might be.
Whew.
I
Just
mean, if he keeps doing that, I mean,
I
I think
I
David's. I
don't.
think he's pushing a little hard to try to
Yeah.
catch Hicks here. And
I know he is. He would love to get a podium finish. David's a competitor. Yeah, and
yeah,
Alvarez plus 20, so between it looks like what you said, dealing with a little bit of damage, and then just with these guys, not going to be able to close that gap. But admirable
yeah.
job getting all the way back up into fifth. Um, yeah, I think where Vecino you might think would just settle, take fourth, and take the points, but he looks like he's still pushing.
Yeah, I mean,
It'll be interesting to see his laps when they pass the finish line. We're only about the start of this lap, so we got a ways to go. But I'll be curious to see how close he is to his optimum time.
I mean, it sounds kind of. It doesn't sound like this would be the case, but a lot of times, the harder you push, the slower you get. I
Mm,
mean,
facts.
at this point, I think David just needs to focus on not necessarily trying to catch Hicks, but just in case something happens ahead of him, making sure that he's still in a position where he can capitalize on it. Because if he pushes too hard through a couple of these corners and hits the wall and gets some aero damage or takes himself out of the race, then I mean,
Oh, he's kicking
that's
himself.
that's just flat out points you won't get.
Yep.
I mean, fourth's better than DNF, so.
Let's see if we get a time here for him when he passes. Is it gonna show us?
I'd say that looked
No.
like maybe a 46-ish.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, that was a 47. Wow,
44.
47.
That was his best lap. He just set
Yeah,
his best lap. He is going for it.
that did not look that
Yeah.
fast. So
Oh, that goes to your point, right? He was more controlled that lap. He wasn't kicking up dirt, and the rear end wasn't kicking out on him that lap like the one previous. So
I don't know, man. I think the left-hand side of his car is about an inch farther in than it was at the start of the race because it looks like he is almost hitting that wall coming out of that last corner every lap.
oh yeah, yeah. That one he might have even. I mean, there might have just been like a molecule between separating his car to the wall that last one because it was close. But at the other wall before that, where he keeps getting close, he wasn't as close. The same one Alvarez hit earlier. I forget the name of the turn, but the one the uphill left-hander at the end of that uphill left-hander. Yeah, I'll tell you, even with David putting his best laps in, I mean, Hicks is maintaining that gap. So I guess as David gets faster, Hicks gets a little faster. Let's see if David, how close he gets to the wall this time. Yeah.
I mean, that was doable, but it looks like he actually smacked the wall a little bit last lap.
I'll tell you what, why don't we just stay on with Hicks if you want to take us on a lap?
Oh yeah, that section is pretty fun. I really like that. This corner of the bus stop is, depending on the car, it's probably around the 300 mark, maybe 250. Take as much of these curves as possible. Some cars take it better than others. Just try to ride in here, full throttle as early as you can, and once again, just kind of ride out on the curb. This is a pretty hard brake down into this one. And speaking of hard braking, on the throttle as early as possible, and this corner down here is it's uphill, so you can brake super late. Just ease on the throttle, try not to lose the rear end. There's really nowhere to go at the edge of that corner, so you want to make sure you stay on it. And this corner kind of it's an awkward one. It's a lot longer than you think it is. Just brake about that sign there. I mean, you can treat this as a single or a dual apex. Try not to hit that wall, obviously. This is sort of a dab of the brakes and back on the throttle. Pretty easy to run wide there. And this corner is just horrible. I mean, you really have to be on the gas as soon as possible. Try not to hit the wall. And down into the first turn, about 150, 200, down hard, ride the curb, and then run as far out wide as you possibly can. Just keep 2 tires on that curb, and you're going to be fine.
I'll tell you what, David makes it look easy. Hicks, he had great control the whole time, and yeah, that was awesome. Thanks for the ride along. We should now jump in for comparison. We should jump in with Macedo on board, watching him have it on edge.
Yeah,
it doesn't look quite as calm. Like, just looking at this compared to the Aston, it already looks scarier.
I mean, it already looks like you're sitting on the front bumper. I mean,
yeah.
The cockpit is so far forward in this McLaren. Not to mention smack dab right in the middle of the car, too.
Yeah, this uphill section, if you have a car that pushes as you're accelerating, it's hard to get on the throttle early and not find your car getting pushed out. So you've got to have a loose enough setup where you can get the car to rotate up that. And this is the one we keep seeing people touch. You had mentioned to get as close to the wall without going into the grass, and we've had a few people at that turn bounce off the wall there, or at least go into the grass.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough one to get right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at least for me. I mean, I'm not the most experienced around here, so I'm a little wild coming out of some of these. Well, there's an apex in there somewhere, but it looks like David couldn't find it.
Yeah, and it might be
a little wide there.
Yeah, and he might just be trying to push these. He sees Hicks etching out, and maybe he's trying to hold off braking that last extra little foot or two, and when you do that, it just never works out well. This is the section that, depending on your car's setup, it's like holding your breath as you go through that. Some cars get really unsettled through there if you make a mistake on entry too, carrying too much speed or. Oh no! There it is. That was Driveman. What happened to Driveman? Was this another case of letting somebody by?
Oh, it looks like no. This was. I mean, that might be part of it, but it looks like that was sort of a continuation of a wreck he wasn't quite finished with. So coming through here, he lets Moda through.
Oh.
Tries to let Moda through, gets off the gas, and the Nissan or the Honda does some Honda stuff, and he is pretty well damaged. And it looks like same thing through here.
Oh no.
Yeah, it gets off the throttle and he just...
he did the right thing. He sat, but I don't think Miller... Poor Miller, too. Miller's had a rough...
Dude.
These guys have had a rough race. Let's go back on board with Miller. Drive passenger.
And this is rough because Miller can't see him. He doesn't know he's there.
Nope. And when he does see him, there's just... You hit the brakes, you're going to lock up the car and go more into Driveman. It was tough. He didn't have the grip to keep the car inside, so it wasn't like he just blatantly ran into him. It didn't look as blatant. I love Pedro, but it didn't look as blatant as the Pedro one, where we can say what we want about Pedro. He got driver of the week last week, so
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
Pedro was looking at his phone.
I gave him a very loving nickname first season. Um, there was nothing horrible or mean about it. I started lovingly calling him the Torpedro, and he's never told me to stop, and even if he did, I don't think I would.
Well,
But
whoa, David,
man,
settle down, David, settle down.
I I get the
You know what happened? He saw that he's back down to 2 point some seconds to Hicks, so he's back to pushing again.
I get I get the need, the feeling that you have to push to catch the guy ahead of you, but
Yeah.
you got to do a profit loss analysis here, man. You gotta weigh what you have to lose versus what you have to gain, and personally, I don't think it's worth a couple extra points to lose fourth. So
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the sound logic, but the problem is it's like a long-term competitor or short-term. Like, are you competing for, today, and you kind of don't look at the whole season as a whole. And I think David's just a race to race guy. I think David would be calculated if it really came down to something, but he likes to compete.
I think there's a bit of red mist going on here too.
Hmm.
It's just sort of focused on that back bumper of Hicks and just doing whatever he can to sort of satiate that bloodlust.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I really feel for Miller though. This has not
So
been
do
a
I.
great race for Evan.
And to his credit, look, he keeps on ticking.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to him for sticking around. I mean,
Hell yeah.
I know it's rough, and you sort of don't want to have to deal with it at some point. But I mean, builds character, man,
It does.
or something. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. But
Especially having to finish it with the damage as well.
and I mean, a few more races like this, and Evan's going to have to worry about being maybe a little too characterful,
Hmm.
if anything, if he sticks around. Then
A little drifty drift action.
yeah, I mean,
If
just
we
you
were
just need.
handing out style points, I mean, I think Macedo would have racked up the most.
I mean, I mean, sure. I don't know, man. It's I mean, from one driver that just does not understand the phrase "chill out" to another. Gotta chill out, man. Just really need to just calm down. But yeah, so I think Hicks got stuck behind a little bit of traffic a few laps ago, and that's why that time started to come down.
That makes sense. Yeah, and looks like last lap 144, so he's still putting in 144s. So he is no sign of, and he looks like a machine. I mean, I've been watching his laps, and he seems to hit all the same markers every time, where he's hitting the apex, hitting the exit, getting on the brakes at the same point. Looks just fully in control of that car.
Yeah, I've got no time for consistency. That's always been that's been my downfall is just just inconsistent, and it's quite crazy to watch guys that are actually consistent. It blows my mind. I've never been able to reach that level.
Well, it definitely pays off, right? Especially when you get to these like hour races. So we're at 59-minute mark. This could be. Oh, and we're actually. I'm talking about Hicks. We're riding on board with Bowen, who's obviously super consistent as well. Yeah. Sorry, Bowen. I'm sitting here giving all your props to Hicks, but really Hicks has been the same way. We rode on with Hicks before. That's what made me forget who we were even looking at in the Aston.
I mean, this paint job does kind of look like he just drove it through a paint store.
Love it. Love the paint
It's
job.
it's a
It
great
is.
paint job.
It
But
is.
every time I see it, it
Yeah.
looks like he just forgot to hit the brakes when he's pulling into Sherwin-Williams.
And that's who he's sponsored by right there, Sherman Williams. He's racing for Team Sherman Williams.
I've just got there. So as a younger fellow, we only had two TV stations where I grew up. So most of my time was spent listening to the radio, and they had one of the most obnoxious uh, radio advertisements in the world. Sherwin-Williams did. So every time I see that car, it just plays in my head.
I would
Ugh.
ask, but I don't want to have it stuck in mind in case I know the ad, because it does ring a bell. Sherman Williams ads, but I can't think of them
Yeah,
fully.
I mean, I'll curse you with it after the race.
Fair enough.
And did I see that looked like Hicks maybe going a little sideways through that corner there?
Did Hicks?
It
He might.
it looked like maybe Hicks got a little loose coming through here. A little bit more of the rear end of his car than I was accustomed to seeing. No, no, it must have just been a trick of
That
the
trick of the
camera
angle, yeah. Hicks says, "No, sir. I am consistent."
Well, yeah, I mean, about 2.6. That's about what he was holding Macedo to, and it
Yeah,
looks
this is
like,
the
yeah,
checkered
that's
stuff.
the...
Bowen, Moda. Here goes Hicks. Here goes Macedo. Great job. Podium finished. Who do we have? We
I
have Bowen.
was gonna say, I think I hear Bowen just
Yeah.
out there, just doing his
Get it,
best to
Bowen.
do the whole,
Get
to
it,
do the
Bowen.
whole, the
Well
whole iRacing
deserved.
blow your
Yeah.
engine.
Oh, there we
But
go. There's the shot of the two Astons. Two Astons on the podium. Very nice. Moda the quiet celebration.
yeah, yeah, I don't know if Moda's celebrating. I think he would have preferred to get first, but that's kind of what it is to be a competitor. It's it's never good enough where you placed. It's always offset by where you wished you had. So,
Yeah, there's
and
Alvarez.
I wonder if at this point, after the Aston got a little bit of a buff, if Doherty's not kicking himself for going with that Nissan.
Oh, 100%. I think 100%. Well, that's the end of our race. Exciting, crazy first 15 minutes where just so much action. I'll just replay I'll just start it back over while we're talking. Just ride on board with yeah, we'll ride on board with Bowen. Um, but yeah, I mean, crazy first 15 minutes of the race. We saw a lot of incidents involving, it wasn't so much drivers trying to make a pass either. It was more of incidents where drivers losing control of the car or being sitting on the track after an incident, and then another driver making contact. We didn't really see anything that was, a driver trying to make a pass or rear-ending another driver. It was all after someone lost control kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's not great to see either type of incident, but of the two, I would prefer, the whole drivers not being dicks to each other and spinning each other out, and more
Yeah.
of the, drivers maybe having a hard time and sort of having an incident all by themselves. That's the one I would prefer to see because
Yeah.
it's the one thing that we sort of preach here is respect. You know, respect your fellow drivers. Try not to be just a complete and total unconscionable person. But yeah, it's as bad as it is to see guys have their races ruined. It's in the method it happened was preferable.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. That's how I'd rather it be as well. So if continuing from last week, who would you want to take as your driver of the day?
Oh, Evan Miller, hands down. For me, it's less where you place and more how you get there. And I absolutely have the utmost respect for Miller sticking it out and dealing with sort of the cards that were dealt and I mean just a shitty race for him. Not his fault.
Mm-mm.
I mean stuff just happens, man. So um, for me, absolutely 100% Evan Miller. He deserves it. Um, I'm glad to see him sort of hang on there. So
Yeah, I think it's a great pick because he does deserve it for sticking it out right through all of that he dealt with. Um, I think for it's so tough. There was so many good performances at the front. The Bowen coming back and winning, Moda um, with another strong finish. He's had so many this season. Um, I think what I'm gonna go with David Hicks for his third place finish. I believe that's the first time he has scored a podium in a championship season race with us, and he was just so consistent. Um, Definitely earned the position. He had to deal with David, just a single mistake almost all race right behind him, and he managed to keep that consistency and get the podium finish with third. So I'm going to give my driver of the day to David Hicks.
yeah, he deserves it. That was a pretty good. That was a clinic on consistency. So
All right, well that does it for this week. Next week it is going to be Zandvoort, I believe, is the next race.
are we going to be doing the traditional Dutch reverse race, or are we going to be? If you're not familiar
I'm not.
and you want to watch something absolutely hilarious, just go ahead and look up Zandvoort reverse race and treat yourself to some very very angry Dutch people driving very very bad cars backwards very fast at Zandvoort.
Well, I'm gonna hope that it's cleaner than that. But after this race, um, it might end up being that. We'll have to find out next week.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see. I mean, I hope it's going to be a bit cleaner than that, but
Well, we will see you all there next week. Anything else, Jay, before we sign off?
no, sir. I think we've pretty much covered it all.
All right, and as always, if you're interested in racing with us, we are past the halfway point of the season, but we welcome any new drivers that still want to join us mid-season. Get racing with us and get ready for the start of season 5. So the Discord link is in the YouTube description. We'd love to have you if you're interested in racing with us.